Hey, Matt, thanks for joining us today. As we're getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Hey, Brian, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. My name is Matt Olivo. I have been in sales. I had to think about this the other day. It's been 21 years that I've been in sales of one kind or another. And right now I work for the leading SaaS provider of work automation solutions. I've been doing that now been in this space for about almost 6 years now. So it's been a good ride so far.
And why sales for you?
Funny. There's a lot of
I didn't mean to stump you.
no, you didn't stump me. It just took me back to thinking when I was in college. I worked in sales in high school, going door to door, knocking on doors, trying to get people to take appointments to get siding. And I learned the hard way how difficult that is, but I liked the challenge. And then I came into sales again. My senior year in college, where I worked at a retail store where I sold home audio equipment, and I love that. And that's what pushed me to, it was more the competitiveness, like just being able to feel like if you keep doing what you're doing, it's going to pay off in the long run. Like I saw the work, effort equals, dollar signs equals, all the things that I wanted in life could be achieved. So it was the quickest way, in my opinion, the quickest way to get to where I wanted to be.
And what did that get you? What did that, for me, it was independence. What was it for you? Was it a car, a lifestyle, a
Keeping my wife, my
happy?
girlfriend, and my wife now. She told me, yeah, she'll be watching this because she's a big fan of yours too. But in all seriousness, it came down to I was in college and I was doing sales, on weekdays and weekends, working for this audio equipment company, and I knew that there was money, and I also knew that my wife had aspirations, like she was well on her way to being where she is today. I was nowhere near that. And I said, okay, what am I really good at? I like people, I'm structured. There's certain things about me that I think I could use in a profession, but what profession is it? And so I would say it wasn't necessarily that there was something that I wanted. It was just that I wanted to feel somewhere where I belonged,
Yeah.
and somewhere that I could be myself and not necessarily pretend. Like I'm not someone that likes to pretend. What you see is what you get, and I just wanted to feel like I could be in a place where I could make good money, not necessarily getting a physical object, but or anything of that sort. It was more I wanted to be a place where I felt like I belonged, and where I could hang. I could actually go out there and compete. So it wasn't so much I mean, money's great. I love the money. We all do, and it's why we stick around. But it came down to like my wife, she was well on her way, and I wanted to compete with her, like it was that
That
competition.
always works
And
out well.
yeah, we're still together. It's been 22 years now or something
Yeah.
like that. So it's been a long time. Yeah.
Do you compare forecasts or do account reviews to get a little QBR once in a while?
Funny you say that. No, we do. She hates the blessing and a curse, because when things are going really well, it's great. It's a great conversation. But then there's days at our dinner table where we'll be sitting there, and I'll just unload on her all the stuff that I've had happen over the course of the day or the week, and she's poking holes. It's
In your
kind of like that
deals?
internal
Yeah.
collaboration. Like she helps motivate me because I see that she's getting a promotion. I'm like, all right, well, I got to sell something bigger. I got to offset what she's doing. But then in the same sense, I also have a sense of, I would say a sense of purpose, because I see that she's helping me with my everyday, like giving me insights from someone who's not in sales, because she's not in sales.
Oh,
She's,
it's not.
she's,
Okay.
no, she loves your podcast and she's not in sales. Although she would probably get mad at me for saying that, but she works in insurance, and she does stuff with environmental pollution. So nothing to do with our space, but she's got such a great mindset that bouncing ideas off of her has been throughout my entire career, has really helped out. Even career moves, like moving to a different company, is it the right move? More money doesn't always equate to better lifestyle or happiness. So it's always having that devil's advocate kind of, I guess, approach, in terms of like our relationship. It's worked out great though.
Well, I think it's always great to be able to talk about your deals, your process, just to get it verbalized. Even if the other person may not have any brilliant insight, they could just ask some obvious questions like, what makes you think that? Or what do you think could go wrong?
Especially someone who doesn't know software. My wife is the most technology
That's
illiterate person you will ever meet. So talking to someone, and what's interesting is in her job, she is like the go-to, between IT and business. She is that conduit, right? So she has insight into like business operations. She sees
yeah.
things that I don't see. And I think that's probably one of the best things about our relationship is the dynamic, how dynamic we are, meaning that she can see things that I in a million years never would have seen, like financial things. I am not good at math. I did not go to school for accounting. I was not good in college in statistics, but I passed it. And she's really good at that stuff. So just being able to collaborate with her and to say, hey, like this is an email that I'm thinking about sending. Does this resonate with you? Is this something that I should be pursuing? Or hey, you're in insurance, tell me all that I need to know about what's disrupting your industry. Like your company's recession proof, but why? How are you doing it? Where are you carving out things that potentially could be opportunities, for someone like me selling? So it's been a good ride because of that, and being able to continue in every company I've been at, which has been vastly different than the others, being able to pull things that she's seen in her daily life that has nothing to do with mine has really helped out a bit.
So it sounds like you had a great foundation. You like working with people. You're very competitive, willing to work hard. But how did you get good at enterprise sales? Because that's kind of, they don't teach it in school. There's very few people that get it. There's a lot of people who mislead you into it, thinking it's all about this or just about that. And you've sold some pretty hard stuff, some big ticket items as well,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've run the gamut. From the intangibles, like selling TV commercials, which they're not tangible. It's not like
right?
you can guarantee an ROI where it's going to fix your problem. And then obviously the outcome of that being if customer doesn't get the results they want, they're going to churn. They're going to turn something. They're going to move to some other medium or what have you. I think really what it comes down to is, for me, like what's made successful career a successful career for me in the last 20 plus years has really come down to it comes down to structure, right? So you're gonna have you need to have structure, like to the point where I literally have you're gonna laugh and your viewers will laugh. I pack my lunch every day because I'm structured like that. I have a lunchbox in my fridge right now filled with my lunch because guess what?
Batman or Robin?
Oh, come on. That's my it's an old igloo cooler that I have in my fridge. My wife thinks it's the funniest thing ever. I've been doing it. It's structure. I've been doing this since I was a little kid, going to high school, then going to college, then starting my career. It's one less thing that I have to worry about, but that kind of gives you an idea of the amount of structure that I have that I try to employ in my daily routine. And that's really like that as part of sales, that was one of the things that attracted me was, wow, if I can have a system. And I know you talk an awful lot about having a system, like what makes things work for you, what is repeatable for you, and why is it repeatable, and then making tweaks when things aren't working. Like right now things aren't working the way that they were 2 years ago for me, or 2.5 years ago. So I've had to change a lot of what I'm doing, but I'm still keeping that structure because the foundation, to your point, it works. But what you put on top of that foundation, that may change. How the house is built may change. So that being very different than what I had dealt with earlier in my career, that's something that I've had to address. So like, the bigger ticket items that I've had to sell, especially what I'm selling now, where you could be going through 6 to 10 months of a sales cycle or longer. I've had longer, 2 years, right? In some cases, and I've had to sell to all sorts of different organizations. Like I've had to sell to a religion, selling to like an actual denomination, which was very difficult than selling to a place that's looking for some kind of increase in their ROI or increase in their financial earnings. I mean, so you have a structure in place. I've used it at every place. It's worked out well. And the other part that I've learned that's really worked out well is the collaboration aspect. I used to when I first started in sales, I saw everyone as competition. I see Brian Burns as competition. What is he doing? I want to replicate what Brian's doing, maybe do it better, right?
Yeah.
And but the what I learned early on was that it's one thing, like if Brian Burns is great at selling, I want to compete against you, but I also want to find out what makes you tick. Like I want to dissect what you're doing, implement it into what I'm doing, and that means collaborating, even with your internal competition, your peers. And so working with that team, that's something I didn't do very well early on that helped me scale my business because I could not scale. I work a certain amount of time and that's all that I have in my day. So how do you make more of the time that you have available? And then obviously trusting in the people around you to help carry that forward when you're not there, like if you go on vacation or you're at an event or whatever it may be. So that was a big part of it.
And are you surprised to see other reps who don't have structure that kind of wing it, see what they have to say, very reactive, shoot from the hip?
Yeah, I talk about this with my manager all the time. We laugh about it because there's luck timing territory, right? You've heard it, I've heard it. There's bluebirds, there's all sorts of stuff. That's one of the things that I would say, like that's also one of the things that I wish I learned early on that I could have told myself, which is like more along the lines of be patient because you just because you see someone else fall into something that they didn't work hard for or that they didn't earn that happens. And not to say that that's not the case with that's the case for everyone. It's not one size fits all. I've been on the receiving end of things that kind of just happen, and maybe I wasn't as prepared, but then I learned from that because oftentimes when you fall into a scenario like that and you see reps in the field that don't have that rigor. They don't necessarily have a plan, right? They get onto forecasting calls and they'll be talking to their leadership about the forecast and how are you getting there? Well, I don't know how I'm getting there, but you're projecting a number. How are you doing? You see that and you realize that those people aren't the ones that typically last in the companies that they're at, or they're humbled because when the microscope is put on them, ultimately the veneer starts to come off and you start realizing like they didn't really, their boss helped them with this, or this came from some other source. And oftentimes it's not something they can repeat. So I think a lot of times people learn from that. It's not that they continue down that path. They're humbled. I've been humbled before, thinking that I was, the best thing. And the next thing you lose a deal that was your whole year, and now you got to figure out how am I going to get back to that point. And chances are it's because of something I didn't do, right? Something I didn't repeat, or I should have repeated from an earlier instance.
Well, that's it, because when you hear territory, timing, and talent, you only have control over one of them. And people forget
Sure,
that part.
you're
So
right.
it's like, okay, so you can work the inside game to maybe change the territory, but the timing, we don't have control over timing. We can kind of influence it with our customers, but our talent, we have 100% control over. And
You
who
do. You're
focuses
right.
on that?
Well, that's what I learned is that I'm not like there's a lot of things I'm not good at. There's way more things that I'm not good at than I am good at. So and that's part of the collaboration. Like you have people around you, like my manager and I love working with my manager. He's awesome. He and we were able to collaborate in ways where I was thinking about this earlier before jumping on. I was thinking like all this stuff that goes into like what takes up a day. Like if you were to ask me at the end of a day, what did you do? What did you accomplish?
What did you do?
I have to really think hard in some cases, but a lot of it's the preparation that goes into it. Like I was thinking about an email that I sent out. My boss and I are working on the email together. Like I may have missed something that I should have included. And instead of thinking I'm the best, I've done this for so many years, I've had success, you got to take a step back. You got to look at yourself and say, you may not be the best at writing an email or talking about whatever the subject matter is in that email. So giving your manager or giving a peer that you respect or mentor, giving them an opportunity to kind of look at it and to have their eyes on it and to say, I wouldn't do it this way. This coming off not the way that you want it. That's the stuff that I didn't do early on in my career. And as you evolve, and to your point, like when you see other people in the profession that are just getting by, and there's plenty of people that just get by, you shake your head and you say, well, maybe I can help them in some cases, or maybe they'll see something that maybe I'm doing that they could also implement and replicate and use to help continue that success that they've had.
And what would you say is your strongest sales characteristic?
I'd say curiosity,
You
right?
know,
It's
it's a
it's
good one.
curiosity. It's
Yeah.
yeah. I got killed for that in my last job because my boss said I wasn't curious enough, and I'm sitting there saying I know that I got here because of the curiosity. But you know what? Again, it's self reflection time. You have to be able to self reflect. He was right in that moment. I probably could have been more curious, but it comes down to, I think, having curiosity also comes from the product you're selling, like having a genuine interest and desire that your product can do X, Y, Z, and having curiosity for understanding how that X, Y, Z can fit into, all the prospects that you're currently going after, right? And seeing where things are aligned. So like I didn't have curiosity in terms of in certain places because I didn't have as much interest in the products I was selling, and those are the places that I didn't spend as much time. But I still had the same method. And when I realized, and people have pointed out to me, you gotta get better with your curiosity. Like we know that this is something that you have. Let's see you, take it to the next level. I followed up by drilling down, creating better discovery questions before going into a call, doing better research, just doing things that would help offset that. But that's always been the constant, having some form of curiosity. Even when you're banging on doors and you see people siding when you're 17 and you're trying to get them to take an appointment, I'm curious, do you have siding from the 1920s? Like these are questions that I asked at a young age, and it's the conversations change, but the curiosity has not.
And how about your weakest sales characteristic?
Oh, mathematics is probably the biggest. So
There's not
forecasting
that
takes me.
much math in sales.
No, 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 no. I know, no. It's
Commission.
in all
What's
seriousness, it's
what's 10% of 10 million? Right?
yeah. I wish there were a lot of problems like that. But I would say that outside of like things that are more of like what the my learning and how I think, I would say it comes down to, in the past is looking on the outside, meaning sometimes I looked and I still do, I look at my competitors. I don't look at competitors necessarily like the competing software products. I look at all my peers. I look at everyone that I'm working with because I aspire to be more than what I am today. I don't want to be where I am right now. I want to be further along. So I see everyone around me, but I also get discouraged sometimes because, to your point, you mentioned, someone that has good timing or good luck or whatever, and seeing that, and I do get discouraged. It takes me away from the focus that I have, and that is a real weakness because I get overly competitive to the point where I sometimes let those things eat
Wow.
into
Yeah.
what I do on a daily basis, and I let that dictate and disrupt my sales motion, and that can be a problem. But I've been getting better at it, but it's not something that I'm 100% past.
And what do you think that comes from? Is it sports? Is it, birth order? Is it
Oh, birth order. Wow, you went there. Yeah, it probably is because in all seriousness, and I know you meet a lot of people. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, and those individuals, they sometimes came from sports,
a
right?
lot of lots from
They come
sports?
from sports. I didn't. I played baseball and I was not very good at it and I was not very competitive. It wasn't until I got into sales that I realized I had this competitive nature behind me that I wanted to, go and be better than where I am. So it was also the middle child syndrome, like you alluded to. I've come to realize now after 39 years of being in existence that I do have a little bit of that,
A
because I
little
have
bit.
children myself. Well, I have children myself now, and I
Yeah.
realize, oh
You
my
see it,
gosh, like
right?
I can see it. Yeah. So I think my older son, is probably going to fall into his dad's profession because he's going to see the same things that I saw, which is you want to be better than the people that you're going to school with. You want to make more. You want to, have a greater esteem in terms of like where you are, in terms of what your pecking order maybe in your family, whatever it may be. So yeah, that would probably be where I'd say the majority of my interest in sales and continuing sales, why I stayed in this profession.
And so you talked about how the competitiveness got in the way. How has it helped you?
It's made me evolve, right? It's made me evolve. I was probably more of a lone wolf, earlier in my career because,
Yeah.
and I hate that term because I've been called that. And like I just said, I was called that and I hated that term, but it is what it is. It's true. I was, and I kept everything to myself. Like I would, talk about sandbagging deals, like talk about, we talk about, just not necessarily giving managers all the information that they need to be able to do their job. Like I withheld a lot in initial stages, and if I paid for those sins, because I realized, and I didn't have, there was a period where I could have had more success, but I didn't because I held on to information and I didn't want to be coached. I
Yeah.
fought
That's the
back on
bad
that.
part. Yeah.
Yeah. But when I started seeing people around me that were doing those things, like the successful people were talking to the management, they were in the manager's office, conversing with them almost on a daily basis. I saw that and I said, I got to do what they're doing. And I've got to pick the pace up. What are they doing? And that's what gave me the motivation to start changing my routine, maybe asking better questions or to go the extra mile, make an extra, 5 phone calls, when I was making, the 100 phone calls a day, make the extra five or whatever, because I saw the people doing better than I was.
And what do you think was behind that? Was it about control, or did you have a bad experience where a manager gave you either bad advice or end run you and went direct to the customer and messed up on one of your deals, or they made you push the deal and it ruined it, tried to get it in the end of the quarter? There's a lot of good
Yeah.
reasons to
Yeah.
sandbag too.
Yeah, no, I mean it came down to I've had some management in years past. That's why I'm very excited about the people that I'm working with now. But I've had some management in the past that has given me bad advice that was not for the best interest of the customer. And then you got to live with those things again. Like you're living with the choices that you made in the moment. And because I saw what was being done, because I was newer. This is earlier in my career. I was newer and didn't know how to run a proper sales process. Like Brian Burns didn't exist,
That's
back in
true.
2000. There wasn't a Brian Burns. Heck, I don't even think podcasts were even around when I was first doing this. And so, like, you're living in your own head,
Right.
and all that you can do is think about, like, I go to bed at night, and instead of thinking of all the positives, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong today? How am I going to fix that? And so a lot of that came from the experiences, like you said, having managers that were they focused on themselves,
Right.
focused on their bottom line, how they're going to talk to their boss.
Yeah.
And I didn't at the time. I thought my bosses were doing right by me. I'm thinking they're doing right by me and my customers. But guess what? They're looking at their bottom line more so than I was aware of, and you pay for it. But then again, you iterate, you evolve, and you learn from that, and you find people that you will want to get aligned with that have the same outcomes that you want to achieve, and the same goals that you want to achieve, and you build a system of trust, and that's what I have to this day. And I've been building it for the ground up of the last several years in different places. In this place, I feel really good about it.
And I'm sure you've been exposed to a lot of great salespeople as well as some not so great. What separates the very best from the rest in your mind?
Yeah, that I think so. I was gonna say it comes down to the curiosity. I think what I have is the real deal in terms of what I think everyone out there, anyone that's getting interested or is interested in sales, and you're watching something like this, and you're trying to decide what your career will be, know that you're gonna have to have some form of curiosity. I think it's an innate a type of motion that you have to go through where you just want to learn more, whether it's about a product, whether it's about a problem that's happening in an industry. So I've seen great salespeople that have curiosity. What they'll also have is that the structure. You cannot be successful without a structure. Yes, you may have a year or two where you're hitting your numbers, but it doesn't last. And you'll be like the people I see jumping jobs every year or two, looking for that blue bird that you're never going to find. So curiosity, I'd say structure, and I'd say the other part of it is just around collaboration. And that's something you learn. That's something that you don't have to have day one, but you will want to get to that point, because the top sales reps that I've been around, they work as a team. They do. When you see a win announcement, there's 20 people on that win announcement, not just one, not two. It's an entire team of people, that help cultivate the opportunity, help the customer drive interest and understand the value of it. hey, that's a big thing. And I didn't realize that until probably in the last 4 or 5 years, that just as how important collaboration is to all those top people being successful and remaining successful, not just being successful in a one-off.
And why do you think curiosity keeps coming up? Because it's probably next to empathy, and I think it's a sequence. So you have to have like confidence to be curious. You can't be a nervous Nelly and be
You're right.
curious. And to
Yeah.
be empathetic, you have to be curious because you have to be thinking like someone else. And you can't do that without being curious about someone else.
Yeah, no, everything you said is accurate. I didn't have like I had curiosity. I remember I mentioned I went through periods where I lost that curiosity or I got away from it. And I went to like the lowest common denominator in a sales process, right? Like the things that we want to avoid.
Right.
I was finding myself going through that. And that's part of the reason why I left is like I wanted to get reinvigorated. I wanted to get back to being the best, got away from my process. But I'd say the curiosity in terms of like it's tough, that's something you really can't teach someone. I think the curiosity, if you see something, like for me, I was always interested in technology. This is how I can relate to sales and how I can bring this back together. So my mom has been in IT my whole life. So I had someone who was in IT. I never had interest initially in IT, but then I started getting interested in technology as a whole. Probably starting with like video games and so forth, but getting really interested in the technology aspect of life. And then I started realizing, well, maybe there's a people or places where I could go where I can talk about technology, be as passionate as I want to be, and I can fuel my success with how much I'm learning about the technology, about the industries that I'm selling into. And that's how I evolved. So I would say the people who are interested in sales, maybe they don't know where they want to go. I would look at, what makes you tick? What are you excited about? Like you get on your phone, you look up news. Everyone looks up some kind of,
Right.
something on
Whatever.
Reddit or something on news. What are you looking at? Like I find myself looking at the same, 3 or 4 things every single day. What are those 3 or 4 things that make you excited? And then start figuring out, well, within those areas, to go a level deeper, like what makes you interested in those areas, and would you want to talk to people about that? And that's sustainability in sales, is when you get to the point where you find something you're interested in and you remain interested in it for years to come.
And what part of your structure, routine, process um, is needs the most work? Because most reps are really
Yeah.
good until that final stage. They get the champions all excited. You get the big meeting, the closed meeting, you get your manager, their manager together. And then the reality hits, right? Because the picture in your mind is this beautiful future. And all of a sudden, the reality comes of what has to get done on the customer side to get this transaction done. Well, everyone's kind of got a hole in their process or something that they were really a lot better at that would take their game to the next level. Do you have something like that or?
Yeah. I mean, for me, yeah, it's tough because there's a couple of areas that I know that are weaknesses of mine right now. There's definitely some holes in my game. I can tell you that. I won't go over all of them because my boss is still learning some
Might
of
be
those holes.
listening.
Yeah, exactly. But I'd say when it comes down to what I need to get better at is, I have to understand a customer's process, right? Like I think you've talked about that on many of your walks. Like it's understanding what they have to go through on their side so that you're prepared. Yes, I do that, but to the level of degree where if I'm talking to someone outside of, maybe a leader in my company, being able to say, well, this is happening because of this, and this, I can generally tell the story. But I think being able to take that story and to actually make business sense of it in our own worlds, like meaning like how is that going to help or hurt me having this process that they have in place? That's where I need to get better at. So I personally have made an effort to try to understand a customer's processes earlier on when I'm doing a sales process, learning what makes them tick as a company, why they go through contracting, how they've contracted with other vendors, right? Because oftentimes that's where you get a bottleneck is in the end of a sales process. You go through everything. You get the stakeholders, the consensus buying group is there. They're all agreeing. You get everyone to agree to this one thing, but
How
then
to
you
get
get
it
stuck
done.
in purgatory forever. You're stuck in purgatory. Yeah, how do you get it done? So that's something that, as I've gotten into enterprise sales, that's something that I realized that is a hole in what I'm doing. And I've been working on it. It's getting better, but it takes reps, right? And it also takes, again, the collaboration where my manager is saying to me, Matt, do you have this? Like, do you know this? We gotta dig deeper. Like, this is, you have surface level information. This isn't good enough. So just taking that criticism and then being able to bring it back, I think I'm going to be able to fill that hole in due time.
And if you had to do it all over again, what single change in either your personality, your skill set, or your routine would have taken your game further faster?
I think just aligning myself with someone early on, like a mentor. I didn't
Okay.
have one. I thought I did. I didn't have one because he wasn't a mentor because I haven't talked to him in like 20 years. But I outside of that, I mean, I needed a mentor. I needed someone that had best practices like that, like would have sped up my delivery. It wasn't that I. It was never that I didn't want what I want today. It was how to get there. I didn't know how to get there. I didn't know the best process. And having a mentor, that's what I wish I had early on. Having someone that just would be able to tell me, Matt, you're cutting corners, you're going to pay for that. You can do it now, you're going to pay for that later on. I didn't. I learned the hard way in every situation. And again, having a mentor also would have allowed me to focus on less around the I call it the inside noise, meaning like what's happening in your workplace, the drama, people
That's
leaving,
right. Yeah. That
get out
doesn't
of your
help
own head.
sell. Yeah.
No, I mean, you're seeing in sales, you see a person leaving every other month practically. So like you're getting attached to people and you keep getting sucked in. And it happened probably 12 times in a period of 3 years. And I'm thinking to myself now, that cost me time. I could have been out, banging on doors. This is when we were actually doing that sort of thing. Like I could have been doing more of it. And I didn't. And it's a shame because I lost valuable time to grow, but it's okay. Again, you learn the hard way, and then you fix yourself, you evolve, and you become better, or at least that's the hope. So that's something I wish I had. I just wish I had someone to tell me early on, like this isn't the right way. Get out of your own head. This is how I did it. Follow my steps.
Cool. Hey, this has been fun, Matt. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Sure, I'm on LinkedIn. I believe my LinkedIn name is it's Matthew. It's all formal. It's Matthew Olivo, and I don't do anything on Twitter, but you will see some occasional posts, and I believe it's just Matt underscore Olivo, and that's a Twitter. But really appreciate Brian. It's been an honor to be here. I'm a big fan of you and your show. I love what you're doing, and you're getting people to the point where they're able to have conversations like this and obviously to share it with the masses so that you can understand how to be the best of yourself that you can be. So I appreciate you making that available to everyone. And thanks for having me.